Good Tuesday morning, everybody, and welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. We're going to be talking a lot of movement in a lot of places yesterday. I tried to give you a little precursor, if you will, into the non-tender or tender day. The deadline was 8 o'clock last night. We saw some trades. We're hearing about even more this morning. Let's just start with my beloved Yankees, who are reported to be meeting this week with both Steven Strasburg and Garrett Cole. Are you kidding me? Wouldn't that be quite the shakeup, you know? And yesterday here I am predicting Tampa Bay to win the American League East. Well, let me pause, because if the Yankees were to land Strasburg and Garrett Cole, I do believe I would have to rethink that one just a little bit, don't you? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show, and thank you, Lenny, for your show this morning. I'm probably going to cover some of the same material, maybe in a different way, but it is so good to be here with you guys on Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports this morning, and I want to thank you for being a part of the show and tuning in, and I'm just looking forward to going through all this information. I got like 20 pages of notes this morning, so let's talk about some of it. We'll get into the tender, non-tender aspect in just a moment. I was reading on Twitter this morning, Bob Nightingale reports that general managers' meetings are right here, and the Rangers are the favorites to land free agent third baseman Anthony Rendon. Sunday, he met for the first time with the Rangers contingent in his hometown of Houston, and so it appears that the Rangers, at least at this point, in an effort to shore up their third base situation, are the front runners to land World Series hero Anthony Rendon. Now, things move and shake, and it's like if you add here, you take away there, and where you take away, somebody else has got to add. So let's just dig a little deeper here. So if Texas lands Rendon, now Washington has a third base gap. And wouldn't it be interesting if they were to sign, say, Josh Donaldson, addition by subtraction? Not only would they sign Donaldson, now the Braves are out a third baseman, and the beat goes on, right? So we'll keep our eye on the Texas Rangers. I will tell you that January 9th, which used to sound like a long time away, but it's Hot Stove Night in Kinston, North Carolina. And you're thinking, well, where is Kinston, North Carolina? And how does that tie into the Rangers? Well, it ties in really well, because the Kinston home of baseball and minor leagues is the Down East Wood Ducks, the high A affiliate of the Texas Rangers. And so I'm going to that on January 9th. Of course, a lot of action between now and then on Hot Stove, but I'm sure if they are to land a player like Rendon, I'll hear all about it at that Hot Stove banquet on January 9th. Keep your eyes out. Keep your ears open. We'll see what happens. How about the Marlins last night? Let's talk about them for just a moment. The Marlins have begun the reinvestment process in team payroll. Okay? They're going to pay $10 million or so to Villar, a couple more million to Aguilar. You know, yesterday, a trade with Baltimore prior to the 8 p.m. deadline. Jonathan Villar will be playing second base, third base, outfield in Miami for the Marlins. A new fish in the pond. And they also go out and sign Jose Aguilar to play some first base. Now, Aguilar, cheap, had a horrible year last year. Nowhere near the 2018 season in Milwaukee. Regulated to the bench. Now he's going to get a chance to play in Miami for the Marlins. Now you got Cooper over there. I guess that puts Cooper back in the outfield mix if Aguilar does in fact cement that first base position. But Miami, hey, I'm liking this a lot. Getting Jonathan Villar, speed, power, he hustles. He had a bad year a couple years ago, but other than that, he's had some really good seasons in the Major League. What a comeback season last year for the Orioles, and I'm looking for great things out of him. So Miami with a big move, Texas talking about Rendon, the Yankees meeting with Strasburg and Cole. Boy, it's going to be an exciting week, isn't it? Let's look at some of the players who were not tendered contracts who are now free agents. And I'm not going to go through every one. I want to try to talk about the most significant ones. And one of to me, the most significant ones is Cesar Hernandez of the Philadelphia Phillies, or no longer the Philadelphia needs. Now, he's particularly a second baseman. So when you start looking around at teams who are in need of second baseman, Cesar Hernandez could be quite the bargain in the winter meetings. I think, to me, of the non-tendered players that I saw yesterday, to me, he is the most attractive player if a team is in need of a second baseman. Other players, Kevin Gausman. Now, it looked like the Braves had finally tapped into Gausman's potential. You know, they got him at the 2018 trade deadline. He had a 2.87 ERA in 10 starts down the stretch in 2018. But 2019, he looked like Kevin Gausman wearing an Oriole uniform once again. He had a 6.19 ERA in 16 starts for Atlanta. Which Kevin Gausman are we going to get? I don't know. I've said this many times on this show. I don't want Kevin Gausman in my business. I really don't. But there will be some team that will be interested in him to take a flyer on him because of the upside potential that he supposedly has. So another free agent pitcher out there. I think he could be had on the cheap. I don't know who's interested in Kevin Gausman, but he's there. Kevin Pillar, last year, led the Giants, 21 home runs, 87 RBIs, and 14 stolen bases. He's 30 years old. He plays a really good center field. Now, he's not got great on-base skills, a 296 career OBP, and probably not quite the defender he used to be. But take a look at the free agent market, guys. Tell me how many really good options there are outfield-wise on the free agent market. There just aren't that many if you take a look. And when you listen to these players I'm going to go through that weren't tender contracts yesterday, find me one better than Kevin Pillar. Okay? So if you're a team in need of a fourth outfielder, or you're a team in need of a corner or center fielder because you just don't have anybody, he probably can be had on the cheap. And 21 homers, 87 RBIs, and 14 stolen bases, that ain't shabby, guys. I'm telling you. So look for Kevin Pillar to land somewhere, and I think land somewhere quick. I really do. Something I didn't bring up at the start of the show, I know Lenny talked about it. Now, Moustakis is now a Red. Have you looked at that lineup that the Reds are going to field going into next year with Suarez, and now with Moustakis and Senzel and the kids? I mean, that Red lineup is going to be impressive. And I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again today. I think I'm picking two wild card winners in the Central Divisions this year. I think Cincinnati can win the National League Central, and I think the Chicago White Sox can win the American League Central. They're my picks this year going into the season. And if the Reds continue, they're talking about adding even more pieces. I see a resurgence of Trevor Bauer, and I see him leading a pitching staff. Cincinnati gets pitching, and they have bats in that lineup. Look out, world. The Big Red Machine may be cranking up yet again. I think it's coming in 2020. I really do. And I think something like that is what Major League Baseball needs. Look, here's the thing. Think about the major sports. And please pardon me, I don't mean to be knocking hockey, but I'm going to talk about basketball, I'm going to talk about football, and I'm going to talk about baseball as the three major sports. And if that offends anyone, I apologize, but I'm doing this to analogize where we are with baseball. Okay, so let's take the NFL first. Okay, year in and year out, if you had to pick the if you had to pick the AFC Eastern Division champion, how many teams would you pick instead of New England? I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion that New England is going to win the AFC East. And as you go across the rest of the AFC, I can just name teams. Kansas City. I can name Pittsburgh. I can name Baltimore. Okay, those teams are going to make it. Now, when I mention teams like, Denver, when I mention teams like the Jets, when I mention teams like those, they're not going to make the playoffs. And you know they're not going to make the playoffs. It's pretty much determined who's in and who's out before we ever get started, or who has a chance. Okay, basketball the same way. The NBA is pretty predictable on teams at the beginning of the season that are going to make the playoffs. And so the only question is who's going to be in the finals. Okay, in Major League Baseball, it's so different, in my opinion, because look, you've got teams like Cincinnati. You've got teams like the White Sox. There are more. Tampa Bay. Okay, I haven't even mentioned the big boys. I haven't done it. I can. You've got Anaheim, who could challenge. Oakland, who can challenge. In the National League, the Padres, the Reds, the Phillies. Okay, so these guys make baseball that much more exciting to me because you never know. And I think year in, year out, you're going to see a Cincinnati. You're going to see a White Sox. You're going to see these teams rise up from the ashes. You're going to see a team like the Twins go from 99 wins to 90 losses. I think that can happen in 1 year, which, again, not great for a Twins fan, but great for baseball, isn't it? The fact that the Yankees or Red Sox don't win makes baseball interesting because you're knowing that somewhere the Yankees and Red Sox, they're going to try to win. They're not going to quit. They're going to keep trying to get better. And so these free agents I'm talking about this morning, they're out there now and probably can be had cheaply. Let's look at some more. Yolmer Sanchez, the American League's reigning Gold Glove winner at second base, non-tendered. Put on waivers last week. He hit .252 in 149 games in 2019. Again, a team with a lot of offense, needing defense up the middle. Yolmer Sanchez may be your man. Now, here's a few more. I'm getting kind of into the weak section here. Aaron Sanchez, right-hander. He was with the Astros. He started out well. Remember, he threw 6 no-hit innings against the Mariners and what became part of a 4-man combined no-no last season. But then he posted a 7.11 ERA over his next 3 starts. Shoulder injury ended his season in late August. He underwent surgery. He's expected to miss the start of the 2020 season. So, given the fact he was projected to get a raise from his 2019 salary, which was $3.9 million, this decision to not offer him a contract is really not surprising. Now, remember this. He's 27 years old, and he's 3 years removed from an American League ERA title and All-Star selections. So I think there are going to be teams who will have interest in him as a possible bounce-back candidate. And remember, I watched Yankee Hot Stove last night on the Yes Network, and Hal Steinbrenner was interviewed, and he said this, and it applies to every team. You can't have too much starting pitching. Don't you see a team going out, taking a whirl with an Aaron Sanchez? How about the White Sox? How about the Reds? If you add an Aaron Sanchez and he can come back mid-season and pitch like he did 3 years ago, or like he even did when he started out with Houston, what a big add that's going to be to a team like that. So I'm big on Aaron Sanchez. He's not going to start the year with a major league club, but I think he can make an impact in 2020. Now, here's a guy that was not tendered by the Cubs, Addison Russell. He has had nothing but problems, it seems, over the past 2 seasons. Okay? 26-year-old entering the season. His on-field performance over the last 3 years, what a dip from his 2016 All-Star year. He had his 40-game domestic violence suspension last season. That domestic violence allegation or cloud has hovered over him during 2018 and 2019. Now, I'm sure Chicago's decision to part ways with Addison Russell was more likely baseball related. Given his age, 26 entering the season, he's 25 right now, and his previous performance, he'll probably get another shot at a starting job, or at least be in a position to compete for one in 2020. But the Cubs are done with him, and so now the question is, what does Chicago do? Who do the Cubs go out? Is this the time for Nico Horner to get solidified in the infield with the Cubs? I probably think it is. What does it mean for a player like Ian Happ, who Lenny and I, and Lenny, good morning, Lenny and I love Ian Happ, but he just has shown not the actual performance that the potential says he should be playing with. We'll see. But the Cubs have some decisions to make, as now they have a roster spot to fill. Is it going to be a young kid? Are they going to go out and make a trade for someone possibly? Moustakis is no longer an option to play second base. He's with Cincinnati. So with Cincinnati improving their stock, what do the Cubs do? I said yesterday, and I'll say it again, I think the Cubs have a losing record in 2020. The pitching's getting old. The players are too, or injured. Theo Epstein and staff, they got some work to do. Now, can they make trades? Can they bring players up? Sure. Look for Amaya, the catching prospect, played in Carolina League last year. He is certainly a trade chip if the Cubs want to go out and get better now. Now, the thing about Amaya, great catching talent. He's probably more advanced defensively than he is offensively at this point, but he's their number 2 overall prospect. He's certainly a player that other teams would have interest in, not only in the long term, but in the short term as well. He's not that far away from the major leagues, probably a year. So it'll be interesting to see if the Cubs look to trade a chip like Amaya or hold on to him and see how it goes. Another player, how about Tim Beckham? Remember Tim Beckham in March of 2019? Opening day, I think he had like 7 RBIs or something. I mean, it was incredible the first week or two of the season. People were picking him up in fantasy off waivers because nobody drafted the guy. And then he was suspended 80 games in August for violating the Joint Drug Prevention and Treatment Program. He'll be eligible to play the first, 32 games of 2020. He'll be ineligible to play, the first 32 games of 2020 once he signs. So he's going to miss the first month or so of the season. Remember, Beckham was a former overall first pick in the draft. Yeah. So he's got plenty of talent. Now, I'll tell you what I noticed last year with Beckham. He's no shortstop, guys. He can't catch a cold at shortstop. I watched him play many a game. And I thought about picking him up, and I thought Seattle's going to bench him eventually because he can't catch. He made errors like crazy. But he was the first overall pick in 2008. He's never lived up to that status. He's gone from Tampa to Baltimore to Seattle. He did have that 2-month run with the Orioles, if you remember, fantasy players. Good morning, George. Good morning, Andrea, and good morning, Lenny. He had that run at the end of 2017 where he had the 871 OPS. And that probably is an aberration because we haven't seen anything like that other than maybe the start of last year for a couple of weeks. But he could be given a chance to prove himself again. I don't know if he's an everyday player or not. We'll have to see. But certainly he's out there now. C.J. Cron, another one. I'm a little surprised that C.J. Cron was not re-signed by the Twins. I really am. C.J. has hit 55 home runs over the past 2 seasons. Now, I know the Twins have a lot of power. But this is probably a salary decision more than anything else. He was set to earn $6.9 million in 2020, which is more than Minnesota apparently was ready to pay. So they didn't tender him a contract yesterday. Now, his performance with the Twins and Tampa should draw interest from teams in need of a first base DH, because that's what he is. He's either a first baseman or a DH, and he's probably a better DH than he is first baseman. We'll see how it goes. A player that I really like, who's never really had a starting opportunity, not tendered yesterday. And here's my dark horse pick of all the non-tendered players, that if he were given an opportunity to play on a regular basis, look out. And I'm going to talk about some teams I think may have interest in Charlie Culberson. Productive for the Braves in 2018 when he hit 12 homers in 322 plate appearances. He can play all 4 infield positions. He can play both corner outfield spots and even pitched an inning. Okay. Now last season, not nearly as kind to the 30-year-old. He only had 144 plate appearances. He did still have a 731 OPS. Culberson, to me, is a pickup. Let's say, how about the Giants? How about the Giants? A team that, he won't cost that much. How about any other squad that you might see picking up a Culbertson? How about the Pirates? The Marlins already picking up two very inexpensive players. The Marlins are not far away, guys. They've got a lot of good rookie pitchers. Alcantara, and now they add Villar to that batting lineup. You let them get another arm, maybe get another bat. And I think that the Marlins can be players and a factor in 2020. I really do. And I've said this before. I know Derek Jeter. I've met him probably 15 years ago. I've had some conversations with him. There is no player, no owner that wants to win more and hates losing more than Derek Jeter. And he is in Miami to win. And I know they didn't have a good record last year, but a Charlie Culbertson on that team could add something. And again, he plays all those positions. A player I thought would get traded yesterday, and Culbertson's a perfect 26-man, George. I think he could stick with any team in the major leagues. I think if he's given the chance to play, he can put up some numbers. Electric bat. He's just never had that opportunity. And I'm just trying to think of a good fit. Kansas City. I'm trying to think of these things. Detroit. There's got to be somebody out there who has a losing team that could pick up a guy like Culbertson and give him a chance at a very low price. So these are, you're talking about Black Friday. It's Black Tuesday. I mean, it's time to pick up some deals, and these non-tendered players may be that. Here's another dark horse for you. Well, you're right. Miguel Rojas may be a rich man's Culbertson. The thing I like about Culbertson more than Rojas, George, is Rojas does not have a lot of power in that bat. Culbertson does. His bat can punk it out of the park anytime. And so if I am looking for somebody who can be electric, it was the Steely Dan, great group, right? I'm going for Culbertson. I love Charlie Culbertson. Let's see who grabs him. How about here's another dark horse, a pitcher. Let me give you some numbers. 2018, 0.78 ERA in 80 and a third innings. Did you hear that? 0.78 ERA in 80 and a third innings. Last year, wow, what a mess. A 4.91 ERA. And over the last half of the season, an ERA that was over 7. I think he was hurt. And I'm talking about Blake Trinan. 31 years old. He earned $6.4 million last year. I think he's a buy low candidate. And I think there are a lot of teams who would love to have Blake Trinan. How about the Reds? I mean, I know I'm killing the Reds this morning. I know I'm not a Reds fan, guys. But can you imagine a return to prominence of Blake Trinan in Cincinnati? That would be a huge coup. A coup like none other. I think Trinan will come back. I really think he played through some injuries last year. And we'll have to see, who grabs him. But I don't think he's going to be out there very long. I think he's a free agent for a short period of time. And here's another one I think is a short period of time, is Yimi Garcia. A solid 2019 season. He had a 3.61 ERA, career high 64 appearances with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's 29 years old. And in 62 and a third innings, he struck out 66 last year. I love that bullpen arm. Now I want to talk about two players who are on the downside. And can they bounce back? Will they bounce back? Who will grab them? You think the Yankees may grab Trinan? I don't know. I mean, the Yankee bullpen is pretty solid. They need a starter. But I guess, George, if you can get Trinan at a low price, he's worth the gamble. He's a hard-throwing right-hander. And, hey, I've seen the Yankees, they love bullpen guys. They did. So we'll see. But two players on the down, Maikel Franco and Jose Peraza. Let's talk about them for a moment. And I find these both interesting and intriguing to a point. Franco, third base. After the 2015 season, where he hit 14 homers, an 840 OPS in 80 games, that was his career year. We thought he was a rising star in 2015, but that was his career year. Now, he has posted in the last 4 seasons a 7.25 OPS. He has averaged 22 homers and 72 RBIs and averaged 140 games a year. Okay, and I agree. The Phillies were still waiting for the career season. He had it in 2015. Now, he was not tendered a contract yesterday. So the Phillies are obviously on the prowl for a new third baseman. So Franco, who earned $5.2 million last year, he was entering the third of his fourth arbitration eligibility season. A team would now control Franco for 2 seasons if they sign him as a free agent this year. Who needs a third baseman? Who would take a chance on Maikel Franco? I think there are a lot of teams that might. And I wonder how much we keep hearing about Franco in Philly, and they were never satisfied with him. He was on the bench last year. Is he the kind of kid once you give him a chance? How about Atlanta? Might Atlanta go out, sign him, give it a reclamation effort? I don't know. It's interesting talk, isn't it? Because I think a team like Atlanta, they certainly, I don't know about Donaldson, Washington. This is all in division too. How cool would it be for a Washington or an Atlanta to sign Franco to a small contract, maybe an incentive-laden contract, and him actually have a career year for a new team? It's happened before. Another player, Jose Peraza. All right. He started double-digit games at second base and shortstop and left field in 2019. That's about all we can say about 2019. Comparing his OPS, in 2018 he had a 742 OPS. Last year, 631, so it was 111 points lower OPS last year. Okay. The Reds signed Mike Moustakis, giving Cincinnati an upgrade over Peraza. Peraza, who turns 26 in April, and given his positional versatility and 3 years of club control, I don't think he's going to find any trouble finding a big league job. It's just a matter of who do you think goes out and gets Jose Peraza? Now, he can play shortstop. He can play second base. He's one of these, and play outfield. He came up with L.A., traded to Cincinnati. He's had some really good moments in 2018. How many of you drafted him last year? And where was he drafted in 2019 in fantasy? I think probably in the first 15 or 16 rounds. He probably won't get drafted this year. He'll probably be a free agent when fantasy drafts are held. The thing about Peraza is he has a lot of upside. I think he's worth a flyer. Now the question is, and I got a place for him right now, Baltimore. Baltimore is a perfect place for him. No pressure. He could hit the top of the lineup. They lost Villar. Hey, it makes sense to me. Another place, Seattle. They didn't tender to their shortstop. But don't you see a place like Baltimore and Peraza being a great match? Now, there may be other contenders who may have interest in him. But to me, that would be a really good match. We'll see. So I think Franco and Peraza are, really interesting to keep your eye on. I want to talk about that Reds sign of Moustakis for just a moment. They signed him. This is interesting. If you remember, the last 2 years, Moustakis has signed 1-year contracts. I mean, 2018 going to 2019, he signs a 1-year deal. 2017 going to 2018, a 1-year deal. 2018 going to 2019, a 1-year deal. He's not getting any younger, and yesterday the Reds signed him to a 4-year, $64 million contract. The math is real simple. That's $16 million a year. Now, I think it's interesting that he went through 2 years of 1-year deals, and now the Reds give him a 4-year deal. The Reds are committed to winning. Now, he's a natural third baseman. We know he's played second base. He's not going to unseat Eugenio Suarez at third. But he does have this 4-year contract. So it looks like the Reds are going to have second base solidified, third base solidified. Votto's still at first. I'm not big on Votto at this stage of his career, but he's still their man. That outfield is really good. Senzel, a really, really good player if he can stay healthy. The pitching is better. Wow. Look for Cincinnati. I'm just telling you. I know I'll go back to them. Another team, San Diego, after dealing Luis Urias to Milwaukee last week, they needed some help at second base. So what did they do? Or they thought they needed help at second base. You're right. Let me go back. George posed a question. I may be wrong, but didn't Suarez come up as a shortstop? Yes, he did. But I don't see the Reds moving him to shortstop at this stage of his career. I really don't. Now, if they were to do that, offensively, assuming he continues, they'd have the best hitting shortstop in the major leagues. I just don't know that they're willing to take that risk defensively. I have never seen Suarez play shortstop. That's how long it's been, okay? So I have no idea. Maybe some of you guys who are Reds fans could do that. But I look for the Reds to go out now and get a pitcher. I don't know who they're going to get. I think it could be – look, the Reds wouldn't surprise me doing anything. It wouldn't surprise me if they went out and signed Garrett Cole. It really wouldn't. Wheeler, obviously an option. Strasburg, an option. I think if they get any of those guys, and I think they will, I think they get a really good pitcher. I just don't know who it's going to be. When they add that to what they have, and I still think Blake Trinan becomes a Red, the Reds are historically – in the last 5 years, they'll go out and get a player who's been hurt or had trouble in the past season and hope that he's a reclamation project. And Trinan is perfect at that. So George says Suarez played 3 games at shortstop for the Reds in 2018. I didn't see him play. I can't comment on it. He may be awesome at shortstop. I've just never seen him do it. So I can't comment on that. I do know that A's and Padres finalized a trade yesterday, sending Jurickson Profar to San Diego. The A's get a catcher, Austin Allen, and player to be named or cash considerations. Now, I do know the Padres had Greg Garcia, Ty France. None of these two guys are expected to be an everyday player. In the trade they made with Milwaukee, they got a minor league infielder who has a lot of promise. I think Profar is insurance. I don't know that Profar will be a starter in San Diego or not. He also plays everywhere around the field. He may come out to be more of a utility guy. But Profar with Machado, with Tatis, with Hosmer, it could really be interesting. Was it 3 years ago or 2 years ago with Texas? He had a couple of months where he was like player of the year. He was really awesome. Never so much last year for Oakland. I don't know how much of that had to deal with ballpark factors. I don't know how much it did with the lineup he was around. But this San Diego youth invasion will probably be inspiration to Profar. I think he could be in for a great year. I really do. Now, I know it's not a hitter's park in San Diego, but with the hitters around him, it could become that for Jurickson Profar. I really believe it. So these are some of the guys that signed yesterday. Here you go. I went through. I'll just throw this at you real quick. How about an all non-tendered team? Are you ready? Catcher Kevin Smith, first base C.J. Cron, second base Addison Russell, shortstop Jonathan Villar, third base Tim Beckham, left field Domingo Santana, center field Kevin Pillar, right field Steven Souza Jr., DH Maikel Franco, and utility Charlie Culberson. How about that for a all non-tendered team? And if you need some pitchers, let's add Taijuan Walker, Aaron Sanchez, a middle reliever Ryan Butcher, and how about a closer in Blake Trinan? That could be an interesting all non-tendered team. You don't get many of those, do you? Hey, it's been great being with you this morning. A lot more to talk about. I've enjoyed it. I'm glad you guys joined me in the chat room. Go out and have a great day from Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports.